Look at a child on the edge of the playground, watching the chaos from a distance, and you think you know the story. Loneliness, shyness, a life half-lived. But you are wrong. Behind that stillness is not an absence, but a universe, a consciousness operating on a different frequency, listening to the whispers the rest of the world is too loud to hear. This isn't a story about a child who has nothing to say. This is the psychology of the quiet kid, a deep and often misunderstood intelligence, forged in silence and refined by observation. It is a testament to the profound richness that exists beyond the noise, a form of being that modern metrics of success and sociability fail to measure. He sits on the fringe of the playground, not because he's lonely, but because he's conducting a different kind of investigation. The swings blur into arcs of motion against the sky, like slow-moving planets obeying their own celestial physics. The shouts and laughter rise and fall like weather systems, with currents and patterns he can almost chart. He is listening, but not to reply. He's listening to understand, to decode the cryptic grammar of the social world. This is the first crucial misunderstanding. People confuse quiet with emptiness. They measure presence by volume, by the speed of a comeback, by the ability to perform on demand. But the quiet child is not empty. He is deep. He is a reservoir gathering rain while everyone else is busy making noise about the storm. His mind is a private laboratory where emotions are dissected and reassembled into understanding. From the outside, silence looks like distance, a retreat. From the inside, it is a careful, deliberate cultivation, a rich interior life built on observation, small private rituals, and long, solemn questions that no one has ever thought to ask him. It is here, in this inner sanctum, that he builds entire worlds from fragments of overheard conversation and the fleeting light of a sunset. And that gap between how it looks and how it feels is where the entire story of the quiet child begins, a chasm wide enough for a lifetime of misinterpretation to fall into.
So why does a child choose this path? Sometimes it's simple temperament, a nervous system wired for lower stimulation, finding chaos overwhelming and stillness deeply restful, a biological preference for depth over breadth. Other times, silence is a fortress built brick by brick for survival. In a home where speaking up brought criticism, or where big emotions were an inconvenience, a young mind learns to self-soothe by withdrawing inward. The world taught them that safety lives in the unspoken, that visibility is vulnerability. And then they enter the classroom, a place that often rewards speed, participation, and immediate answers, a theater of instant recall. In that economy, quietness is treated not as a different way of thinking, but as a defect to be fixed, a glitch in the system to be patched with forced participation grades. Yet neither temperament nor survival strategy tells the whole beautiful paradox.
The quiet child is often intensely social in their own way. They crave connection deeply, but they are cautious of the clumsy, loud, performative ways the world demands that connection happen. So they become master observers. While others rush to be heard, they notice who is left out. The micro moments of hurt on a classmate's face that flash and vanish in an instant. The subtle shift in a teacher's smile when someone gives a wrong answer. They are cartographers of the human condition, mapping terrains others walk over without seeing. Listening becomes their craft. They collect impressions, gestures, and tones of voice like smooth stones from a riverbed, turning each one over to feel its unique weight and texture. And later, those collected stones become something else entirely, metaphors in a poem, the elegant logic of a scientific hypothesis, an invention born of seeing a problem from a unique angle, a melody that captures a feeling words cannot. This is the untouched raw material of creativity. Think of the poets, the scientists, the composers who began not as talkers but as watchers. In their silence, they learned to accumulate nuance. In their stillness, they tested the textures of the world before ever making a move, conducting countless mental simulations before a single real-world step. But here lies the central tension. This kind of silence is fragile. It exists in a social economy that prizes performance and immediacy above all else, that conflates quickness with intelligence. And so the quiet child internalizes a single corrosive message. You must be louder to be loved, to be valued, to be seen. The constant pressure to translate a symphony of thought into a hurried shout becomes a source of deep anxiety. So they adapt. Some learn to mask. They study the extroverted scripts of their peers, of characters on screens, and they learn to perform a version of sociability, a pantomime of ease that leaves them spiritually drained. But masking is an energy-draining act. It creates a cold disconnect between the inner self and the outer performance, a psychic split that can widen with time. Others react by withdrawing further, building the walls of their fortress even higher, convinced the world will never slow down enough to meet them in their thoughtful pace, a tightrope walk between engagement and self-betrayal. There's a moral subtlety here that's often missed. Quiet children are so frequently assumed to be the easy ones, well-behaved, obedient, no trouble, and adults relax, their attention diverted to more squeaky wheels. But easy is not the same as nurtured. A child who does not loudly demand attention may in fact be getting none at all. In families, in classrooms, attention is a resource, and it's often allocated not by need, but by volume. The child who shouts their need gets it first. The child who waits patiently, who whispers, is left in a perpetual queue. Those long waits accumulate. They are small, silent debits on the heart's ledger that over years compound into a quiet entitlement to nothing, an expectation of less, a belief that one's own needs are somehow optional, an imposition to be apologized for. This is the hidden curriculum of quietness, learning to make yourself smaller. This is where the psychology truly curls inward. Quietness can be both a chapel and a prison. The chapel is where profound reflection breeds insight and empathy, where solitude is a creative catalyst. The prison is where self-erasure becomes a habit, where the walls built for protection start to block out the light. The quiet child learns to hear their own voice as a risk. They rehearse sentences in their mind, perfecting them, only to decide at the last moment not to speak them aloud, the thought dying on the threshold of their lips. They become fluent in apology as a form of preemptive armor. Sorry to bother you, before they've even asked for anything. That apology can harden into an identity, a way of moving through the world under the assumption that simply taking up space is an inconvenience to others, that their existence is a gentle intrusion. And yet, within that same quiet, there is a latent power. When a quiet person finally chooses to speak, their words have weight. They are like dated coins, spent carefully, and because they are rare, they are often heard. But being heard is not the same as being understood. Their language is often indirect, symbolic, considered, layered with meanings that require unpacking. Modern conversation is a game of immediate retorts and zippy comments, a verbal ping-pong match. When someone offers a slow, complex thought, the thread is often dropped, the conversational flow rushing past it. So the quiet mind learns another skill, compression. They shrink their vast inner world into smaller, digestible words to fit the group's breakneck tempo, losing essence for the sake of entry. What we need is a fundamental rethinking, not to fix the quiet child, but to respect a different mode of engagement, to value cognitive diversity. Silence is not passive, it is profoundly active patience. It holds back the rush to judgment and allows complexity to breathe, creating space for ambiguity and insight to bloom. Imagine a classroom, a meeting, a family dinner, where the first 10 seconds of silence after a question were intentionally held open, giving the quiet mind the space to articulate something truly original, something that wouldn't survive the pressure of an instant reply. Our social architectures, from open-plan offices to rapid-fire team brainstorms, are designed for immediacy, not for depth. The quiet child is navigating a world built against their most natural rhythm, a world that mistakes their processing for procrastination. This mismatch carries a deep pain. The quiet child who internalizes the world's messages often becomes their own harshest critic. They measure their worth against the noise around them and find themselves vacuuming, their rich inner tapestry feeling worthless next to the loud, colorful banners of others. They can mistake their rich introspection for a defect, their thoughtful pauses for evidence of brokenness. As a teenager, watching peers build identities on visibility, on social media profiles, likes, and shoutouts, the quiet teen can feel like a ghost in their own life, a spectator to a party they weren't invited to. The interior world that once felt like a sanctuary can start to feel like a liability, a secret burden. The quiet child often grows into an adult who exploits their own invisibility, taking supporting roles and keeping their ambitions small, not from a lack of talent, but from a learned belief that they do not deserve to take up space on the main stage. But in other, more hopeful cases, that deep interior life becomes a fuel for a different kind of leadership, a leadership born of observation, of listening first, of seeing the person in the corner and making space for them. The quiet person's capacity to hold complexity without needing to simplify it becomes a profound resource for any community wise enough to recognize it. They become the strategist who anticipated the flaw everyone else missed, the mediator who hears the unsaid grievance, the visionary whose idea was slow-cooked to perfection. So how do we care for the quiet child? We validate without demanding a performance. We welcome the slow reply instead of rushing to fill the silence for them, holding that space as sacred. We ask open-ended questions that invite exploration, not interrogation. Questions that begin with, "Tell me about," or "What did you notice?" We give them roles that honor their modality, the recorder of ideas, the keen observer, the thoughtful curator, the deep researcher. This isn't about forcing them to become loud. It's about giving them tools for translation, small rehearsals, simple scripts, the permission to say, "I'm still processing, can I come back to that?" and affirming that their way of engaging is not just acceptable, but essential. There is a philosophical lesson here for all of us in an era that mistakes speed for wisdom and certainty for strength. The quiet child is a living corrective, a reminder that thought is not the same as speech, and that listening is an active, powerful form of participation, a generative act. Their presence asks us a deeper question. What does it mean to be fully present without needing to dominate? How do we design a world that rewards depth over spectacle, that makes room for the slow and steady pulse of contemplation? They challenge the very cult of personality, offering instead a cult of character, built in quiet. The stakes are real. Without conscious change, the quiet child can adopt a narrative of permanent invisibility, a belief that their voice is unnecessary, that their perspective is a footnote. That belief can shape a lifetime of missed opportunities and unlived potential. But if we choose to reimagine our spaces, to let the slow thinker speak first, to assume depth instead of drama, to design for inclusion of temperaments, we can guide that watching child into an adulthood that doesn't punish their gift, but protects it. They can learn to translate their inner world, to assert themselves gently but firmly, to find their people, the other listeners, the watchers, the thinkers, and build bonds of unparalleled understanding. The final paradox is this: the quieter you are, the more room you make for others. But the louder the world becomes, the more essential your quiet becomes. So the question is not how to make the quiet kid louder, it is how to make the world listen. And that has everything to do with rethinking value, attention, and the very architecture of our shared humanity. It requires building slower spaces, practicing intentional silence, and recalibrating our metrics for contribution. If you see yourself in this quiet, know this: your silence is not a deficit. It is a malleable, profound strength. It can be armor or sanctuary, a refuge or an instrument. The path isn't to erase the quiet, but to learn to steward it, to let it be both your safe harbor and your loudspeaker. when the moment is right. Because sometimes the one who has been studying the world from the edge of the playground has seen it most clearly, has understood its patterns and its heartbreaks in a way the participants cannot. And one day, when they speak, the world will wish it had learned to listen much, much sooner. That day, the observer becomes the guide, and the silence finally finds its profound and necessary voice.